Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show today who's really going to help us, focus in on some, critical connections, really, that we have to make. Edwina Cowell was born in Chicago and raised in Lincolnwood, Illinois. Her Polish Catholic family was solidly middle class with a blue-collar dad that was a World War II veteran and a tool and die maker. Her mother was a mighty 5-foot-tall mom who raised the kids and took care of the house without ever learning how to drive. Edwina and her sister went to school and stayed close to home throughout their early years. Her sister studied psychology at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and Edwina studied philosophy and theology at Felician College in Chicago. As she ventured into the world, Edwina had many jobs and dove into each and every one with enthusiasm, pride, and the strong work ethic she inherited from her parents. Her first job in a deli led to her promotion to catering coordinator in a year. Then a friend landed her a summer job at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where she worked her way up to be a pit broker. And then in just a few years, she bought her own seat, and she traded on the floor for 17 years and was one of only 4 women in a pit of 300 men. In 1989, she founded a nonprofit, CARE, has sheltered, cared for, and placed thousands of homeless animals. She also owns and operates her own successful interiors business. But even all of this was not enough for Edwina. When her first son was 7, she and her friends were all struggling with organized religion and how to raise their kids. She realized that discussions about life, God, forgiveness, gratitude, and love were not taking place in many people's homes. Those subjects were outsourced to a teacher once a week on Sundays for 45 minutes, and no one was giving kids the context of teaching them about the other religions of the world. This didn't sit well with her, so she went about the business of creating something entirely new to bring those conversations home and make them broader and more inclusive so that kids could have a more realistic picture of the world and become critical thinkers. In 2007, Spiritual Playdate was launched, a fresh and exciting program that is now accessible online by families, teachers, and houses of worship worldwide. Edwina currently resides in the Chicago area with her husband, Hal, of 32 years, and her 2 teenage sons. Edwina Cowell, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am so ready to get you guys over the hump.
I appreciate you having you here. And I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Sure. My current passion has to do with my program, Spiritual Playdate, and the expansion of just a new way of communicating and connecting with each other, not just with our children, but with we as adults. It's time that we start talking to each other, thinking more critically about all of our ideas that have been delivered to us, and that we question some of our upbringing and some of these traditions that we've had for a long time. So my particular passion has moved not just from Spiritual Playdate, but actually into the idea of the Golden Rule, of which there are 22 versions of the Golden Rule. 22 different religions have a version of the Golden Rule. And the Golden Rule isn't, I'll be nice to you, you be nice to me. And that's how we teach it. We teach it as do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. But if you look at all 22 versions of this Golden Rule and you boil it down, what it says is you and I come from the same source, whatever you want to call that source. We return to that source. We're the same. If I hurt you, I hurt me. And when I help you, I lift us both up. I lift us all up. And so that has really become my passion through Spiritual Playdate and through everything else that I do, through my other business and through my life relationships. It is about win-win relationships. It's about starting to really authentically treating people in a caring way and thinking about how to relate to people so that people don't walk away feeling like they've been taken advantage of. And whether that's boss, employee, husband, wife, parent, child, it's really, really important that we start to treat each other differently. And that boils down to some of these teachings that come through all these spiritual wisdoms.
Well, and thanks for sharing that. I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is because when I look at many of the people who I've had as guests on the show, I mean, I start seeing a lot how things are just really interconnected. So, Dr. Cage, Kim talked about us having a creativity problem, and it goes into us not being able to make these connections and the way that our education system is actually structured. And we can't get these things fixed, right? Why? Because we can't have some of these deeper conversations and move some things forward. We're actually raising, one of the loneliest generations ever, because when we start thinking about, oh, what are you talking about? We're so socially connected in all these platforms. No, people are connected to their own individual screens and they get isolated from society. And so with people in the workplace right now, what are they told? We don't talk about politics and religion. Well, gosh, if you're not doing that, how are you going to connect at a deeper level, and find a sense of, fit, well-being, trust, so that you can actually collaborate?
Well, and I think we have come to a point now where really all this fear and this misunderstanding has been revealed. And I do think something good that could come out of this is now it has become time to start to understand each other. Our cultures have become intermingled to the point where we need to learn what other people think. We need to allow them to be on their path. There's an interesting, I quote, believe it or not, Charles Krauthammer quite a bit. He wrote an article years ago about how Republicans think, I wasn't going to get into politics, but that Republicans think Democrats are stupid and Democrats think Republicans are evil, and Democrats aren't stupid and Republicans aren't evil. And I always take that and frame it around theism and around belief in God. Atheists think, many atheists, I don't want to just paint it with too broad of a brush, but many atheists think that theists are stupid, and many theists think atheists are evil, and neither is true. We all have these theories about how we got here. Where did life come from? None of them are proven, and none of them are disproven. And until we have proof or disproof, we need to allow people to explore those theories and be on their own paths. And I will say that I think it is critical that we continue to question, continue to learn, be truth students. And I think that's what's many spiritual paths and also atheists and scientific paths. We're all looking for truth. That's what we're looking for. And as long as they're theories, and that's what they are at this moment, we need to allow each other to be on those paths. And we need to not indoctrinate our kids. We want our kids to have, many people want their kids to have a faith in something. And I certainly do. But at the same time, what I really want is my kid to have tools about that help him cope in life, about forgiveness, gratitude, meditation, love, love and understanding and connection. Those are the things that most people really send their kids off to Saturday school and Sunday school for, those particular things, but that's not often what they come home with. They come home with quotes and Bible studies and stories, but they don't sit and really talk about some of these things that are just critical throughout the course of their lives. So, and that is one of the reasons why we created Spiritual Playdate.
Well, and I think, thanks for sharing that. What you were saying is that, and I kind of see the same thing too, but I think there does require, well, one of the things that they say about the Lord is that he doesn't give us, youth and wisdom at the same time. So while we can get a good foundation, and exposure and perspective and things like that, it takes time for us to actually start putting it together and see where we fit. And that's kind of, I think, some of the issue is that, and here's a funny irony when you start thinking about all this, is that one of the major things that younger folks look for in an organization to work for is they look for purpose. Purpose is an extremely important component in two ways: to attract talent and then to retain top talent. If people don't feel that they're part of, a bigger purpose, that's the revolving door right there. Well, I don't believe in this. I don't have a connection. I'm not engaged with it. And so, you know what? Oh, you're going to pay me 50 cents more an hour, or you're going to pay me, $100 more a week. I'm out of here. I mean, there's just not going to be any connection. So if we're not giving it to them when they're young, they're seeking it when they're older. But if we don't, talk about some of these things and really connect with individuals at the level, because we can't talk about politics, we can't talk about religion, how are we going to find purpose? We've got to push past those barriers. So what would you suggest that people do in order to help them, break this malaise?
Well, I think we as a culture, it sort of goes back to everything being separate. And capitalism is sort of undergoing what a lot of economists would like to see as a reformation. A lot of economists believe that capitalism has let us down. There have been some pretty frightening things that we've gone through, that we've been set up for. And one of the ways around that, many people believe, is to have more conscious corporations and more communities that tie back, more business communities that tie back to their communities. And, you see it in a lot of different ways now. You see people collecting money, or people working in other countries, businesses that have, a perfect example is there's a company called Interface, and it's part of a carpeting company. And they have gone out into third world island countries, and they're paying the community there to retrieve plastic drift nets from the ocean. Then they take those drift nets and they recycle it into new carpeting. Okay, now that's a connection. That is that win-win kind of attitude. There's a purpose. Individual purpose, I think, is different than people being connected and looking for ways to create wins for their community and not just affect their bottom line. We happen to be an L3C. Okay, so an L3C is a new designation. It's not a 501c3, which is a nonprofit, and it's not a corporation. It is a hybrid between the two. And I think it's about 6 or 7 years old. It's legal in all 50 states. And what they call it is the corporation with the soul of a nonprofit. And it's a structure that allows for sustainability. It allows for us to not be beholden to our bottom line, but be beholden to our mission. So it doesn't mean that you can't make money. It doesn't mean you can't have assets. It's set up more like a corporation. But what it does mean is that your mission supersedes your bottom line. So just because you can make an extra 50 cents doing this doesn't mean you do it. Is it serving community? What is your mission? So we're very excited about this. It is still quite new, but we're very excited about this because we feel like this has great potential in the world for companies to be sustainable. Employees, I've been a volunteer. I'm a recovering volunteer. I started a 501c3 in 1990 something, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I'm tired. I'm tired of begging for money. I am tired of volunteering and not getting paid. People that work deserve to be paid. They deserve to be paid so that they can sustain their own lives and communities and families. So I really think we have to shift a lot of these thinking. There are things that are letting us down. We have to be innovative. We have to be innovative in business. We have to be innovative with our companies. And you are seeing it more and more. There are more companies out there connecting back and looking for ways to not just earn a solid, prosperous living, but also better the world, create community, help people. That's what we need to do. And that is purpose, personal purpose as well as purpose for business.
Yeah, there was a phrase that I saw that to me just kind of fits this perfectly, in saying how, people no longer are looking to work for the company that is the best in the world. They're looking to work for companies that are the best for the world.
I love that.
And I think that,
I love that.
I do too. And I think that's something that when I start thinking about my own kids, that, I want to teach them, and when they start, looking for, potential places to work or even careers for that matter, I want to teach them that, hey, is this company one of the ones that are better for the world? Because that's where you're going to find connection, and that's where you're going to find passion, and that's where you're going to find fulfillment, and that's where you're going to give your all and feel like it was well worth it, not
Right.
that you were being taken advantage of, like you were saying.
I totally agree.
So when you start thinking about, the spiritual play date and going through that, and I can imagine there was just so much learning, that went on from those mothers that were starting on that living room floor. And when you start, looking at the particular program and the impacts that it's had, what would you say have been one of the surprises?
I think the surprise, without a doubt, is how much I have learned about myself and how much my ideas have evolved. And for me, again, this was our first play date on the living room floor was almost 12 years ago now, probably. And it's so interesting to me. I mean, where the world is now versus the world then, and where just even the term interfaith, which was a word that nobody even knew what it meant. And there were, some clergy getting together on an occasion. Interfaith is an enormous buzzword right now because of all the problems that we have around religion. And if religion is to survive in any shape or form, we have got to find a way for us all to, I hate to use a cliche, but coexist and not just tolerate each other, but accept each other. And so I think for me, the path that it's put me on, again, it was just sort of started out of a need. The path that it's put me on is surprising every day because, for example, I'm here right now and I feel like I have such a clear vision of my purpose at this stage of life, which I have to be honest, I don't think a lot of people necessarily do. I'm about to be an empty nester, and most empty nesters, not most empty nesters, but many empty nesters struggle with what that next chapter looks like. And I think I have a very clear vision of what my next chapter is starting to shape up to be. So I think that's probably my biggest surprise. But I always am amazed at how all these experiences continue to shape my thinking and bring me to a new place and expose me to new ideas and new people and new experiences in my life. It's very exciting.
So definitely all of this that we're talking about, everything from the workplace, the loneliness, the connection, the spiritual, all of this stuff is just wrapped in so much powerful emotion. And one of the things that we do on the show is we look for quotes to kind of help us give us that energy. Is there a quote or two that you can share?
So I have many quotes. I would say, I'm gonna say the quote, and then I'm gonna explain why I think this is my quote, and then I'm gonna say the quote again. Okay. So my quote would be, "It is the question that enlightens and not the answer." The reason that I feel that this is so important is this is our philosophy with Spiritual Playdate. And so Spiritual Playdate are conversations for parents to have and activities and meditations and all these other things. It's all delivered online. Simply, you go to the whatever topic you want to, open it up, and it's all there for parents, educators. But it's done in a Socratic method. It's done in a script of questions, okay? You don't need to have the answer, and your kids don't need to have the answer, and you don't need to dictate the answer. You need to ask the question, what is God? What do you think heaven is? What do you think hell is? What does forgiveness mean? Can you forgive yourself? When you start asking questions, the kids start thinking about what it means to them. And first of all, I will tell you that most of the adults that partake in this, they're always surprised at how many ideas the kids actually have that we're not aware of. But when you just deliver, whether it's theology or anything, you're just sort of, I think I've mentioned this before, but I had this conversation with a friend and a colleague, and he was saying, it's getting harder for me to put my kids in a situation where we sit them down and tell them, this is what you believe. And I thought that was so fascinating, because if you really just take that phrase, that's what we've been doing with kids. That's what I was, in that situation. I was sat down in a classroom and I was told, this is what you believe. This is what is happening in the universe. And this is what is true. And I wasn't allowed to question it. I wasn't allowed to think about it. I wasn't allowed to weigh in on it. And like many teenagers who start to think more critically, I ran away from a lot of those ideas with my hair on fire when I was 18. And I rejected it all. And I'd said, that's nonsense. I don't believe any of that. Mm-hmm. So my quote, again, about instead of, we always wonder why our teenagers are, for lack of a better phrase, not bright. Sometimes, we can't even believe that they can't think sometimes. But we tell them to do something as opposed to asking them to think about something and getting them to figure out the answer. And that light bulb goes on and then they go do it. So, instead of just preaching at our kids, and I do mean preaching in all fashions, and I just mean, and this is true for employees. This is true for adult to adult conversations where you disagree. Asking questions, that is really where the enlightenment comes. It's where we start to be creative in thinking, be more critical in thinking, because it turns our brains on. A teen, his brain's shut off. An employee that's in a cubicle just doing data, their brains are shut off. They're just going through the motions. When you start asking questions, they really need to their brains turn on. And so that is one of my favorite, and it's influenced me greatly through Spiritual Playdate. And it was very important to us to not predispose any of these beliefs to kids or adults or anybody else, to ask questions about them.
Well, I know, when you start thinking about all of this, is that, like, I think you've kind of said it. There's a lot of humps that you've gotten over in order to be able to get to where you are today. You also talk about the multiple businesses. You're obviously a creative thinker. It's, always have to stay, in motion. And you have a huge heart, wanting to help, in a lot of ways, including animals. But, there's a lot of teachings and learnings from, like you said yourself, that have gone on along the way. Is there a time where you've had to get over the hump that you can share with us?
Yes, I can. I would say that was probably several years ago when we were starting up our digital program. We signed on and started the web development, and we had a small group. Our staff, our team was, 3 or 4 at the time. It's still not a very large group, but it's, larger than that. But at the time, everybody was very involved in everything because it was a very creative process at the beginning, and we were starting our web development. And we encountered, we had laid out some decent money for our website. We encountered a web developer who I saw some flags early on of him being kind of a little disrespectful and defensive and angry, and I ignored those flags. And the situation continued to escalate and escalate and escalate, and we got a website out of it. I at the time, I think I was worried that we had put down all this money and we weren't going to get through this. I was going to have to start over. And so I was wrestling with this. Do I just cut bait? What do I do? And so I hung in there, and it was kind of ugly. And he was so disrespectful to some of my team, and everybody. Every meeting felt, everything we were doing was just dreaded. We got through the entire thing, got our website, and within 6 months realized we had to have the entire website rebuilt and spend the money to have it redone anyway. So I think I got through that hump, but I had a huge learning experience. When people show you who they are, believe them. Just because there's some money put down, don't let that dictate. This has cost us far more in the long run to redo everything and the timing and everything else than had I pulled the plug and walked away from that initial investment on that. So, I got us through it, but it wasn't what I would do today, I hope. in terms of getting us all through it.
As you were telling that story, I started thinking, yep. I mean, I try, because I think part of that comes down to talking about that personality, wanting to help people and things like that. And, you wait sometimes too long and don't pull the trigger when you need to.
But, the problem with that one was that it wasn't just the money. We had already come so far with this website, and you don't want to do all that. You like the idea of doing all that work over again. I've done that work over 10 times getting the new site together, so it didn't save me anything. It didn't help our team. It didn't help that person, let him know that he shouldn't be treating people like this. All of those things, it didn't really serve anyone. And I could have done it differently. And I'm much more aware of that kind of thing now in terms of being protective of my team or realizing I'm in with somebody that doesn't align with my way of treating people or my vision.
I think that's an interesting point. And so for me, I've tried to do a better job of trying to find people that I can connect with and have a respectful, relationship with, even if it's commercial relationship. Me, myself, I had a situation where, I had to let a situation, go and say, you know what, I'm not interested because of, what you were just saying. I mean, I saw the sign, I saw that, it was disrespect. I was disregarded. They saw no value in me. So I'm like, well, why should I just keep subjecting myself to this? I'll go find somebody where, they will appreciate me. And sometimes we don't do that enough. So when you started thinking about, I know you got a lot of things going on, talking about being an empty nester, you got the spiritual playdate, you have your interiors company. You just have a lot of things. And you may have already mentioned this, but help us understand what's one of your big goals right now?
Well, as this has unfolded, I probably wasn't aware of how the potential that this had, because the climate in the world was not where it is right now. The response has always been, people are just amazed. They're like, okay, this is incredible. This is just what we need. This is, so I've always gotten that response from people. But I think now I see enormous potential in a paradigm shift in the way we approach all of this, to the point of a global shift in the way we would connect with each other on this subject, on these subjects. You can sort of lump them all in together. They're all not that different. But, wanting to understand, really reaching out and connecting and wanting to learn more about each other and learn more about each other's tradition, about each other's cultures. Religion's an interesting thing because it's not just in a vacuum. It's deeply embedded in all of our cultures. You hear all kinds of people say, well, imagine the world without religion. But so many of our traditions have come from, religious roots that, it's hard to imagine extracting it. And again, I think a lot of people would say, you don't want to extract it. You want to improve it. Just like everything else, we want it to evolve and get better. And so I think my biggest goal really is, dare I say, modestly say, a global paradigm shift in the way we approach religion with kids and with each other.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Edwina, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust, yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Edwina Cowell, are you ready to hoe down?
I am ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Time. Enough time.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Check your ego at the door.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Win-win relationships.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Win-win relationships.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion, and it can be from any genre.
Mark Lane's The Mission-Driven Venture.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Edwina Cowell. Okay, Edwina, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I think I'm repeating it probably for the fourth or fifth time. Win-win relationships. They all need to serve us. We need to serve each other and ourselves at the same time. People need to walk away from any kind of deal, business or any other relationship, with a win-win feeling.
Edwina, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
You can reach us through www.spiritualplaydate.com, or you can email me at edwina@spiritualplaydate.
Edwina Cowell, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.